conversational. Like I don't even. There's no introduction for it yet. I straight up, if you listen to like any of my podcasts, I'm
I
like,
did.
oh, you did? I'm like, there's
Yeah.
no. I probably want some intro music, but I just like I don't need it. It's not something I need to have this podcast going. So I just straight up don't have it, right?
Yeah.
And things like that. But this is Human Excellence. This is episode 21. 21. So this is gonna air not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday. On the I don't even know the dates, man. Like this past weekend was a lot.
I
Right? We
know.
had a Patriot conference. You were there serving. You were there DJing. How was that experience for you?
The serving experience was awesome. As you know, I do safety.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it was just good to be in the presence, even though I was still doing safety, just to be part of the service. Um, it really touched me to the point where I really had to go to the side of the curtains where I was patrolling, and I kind of shed a little bit of tears because the message it hit home. I can tell you definitely. Um, it's not something that maybe in the past would have touched my heart or tugged at my heart as much as it did is doing now that I've been in this journey. So serving was awesome. Doing anything for churches, being around positive energy, positive people, people that are there for change is always good. I enjoy it. It was fun. Um, Saturday, I had the opportunity to DJ in between the bands and play a little bit of music. Um, I mean, DJing is always fun. People tell me, "Well, I mean, you work a lot." I mean, it doesn't feel like work for me. I think when you enjoy something and you're passionate about, it doesn't feel like work. So both days were fun. I didn't make it on Sunday. I did have a long week, and then Friday and Saturday long hours. I told my wife, I think we are going to watch service online today because we definitely needed that break. And I think it's smart to know when you need to rest, not to exhaust yourself and push yourself to the limits. That's also not good. But overall, good experience. A 10 out of 10.
A 10 out of 10. I love it. Absolutely. Um, there was just a lot to unpack. Just what we just
Yeah.
literally just from what you said, but we'll unpack that in a bit. Um, before we get into anything else, the way I start this podcast typically is I ask my guests, "What's your definition of excellence?" So, Alfred, what is your definition of excellence?
I'll give you a two-part.
All
If
right,
you would have
let's hear it.
if you would have asked me this question before I started walking with God, I would have told you, materialistic things, Now in my journey that I've been going through with God, excellence for me now means one, acknowledging God. I think that's very important, and I think that's where I was lost before. Excellence for me means being a great leader for my kids, being a great leader for my wife, being a great leader for my home as a whole. But not just that, but sharing that excellence with others, and sharing my stories like we are today, and sharing, the ups and the downs and how we learned about that. So for me now, excellence is more of my faith. I'm faith driven versus earthly driven and man-made things that are driven. So for me, excellence is just being one with God and being able to share that with my family and with others.
Yeah, that's beautifully said, right? So, in a sense, there was a transition between the Alfred of the world to Alfred of the kingdom. So what was that turning point? What was that turning point that really made you say, "All right, I can't be doing what I used to do anymore. I gotta turn. I gotta go do something else. I gotta
Yeah.
have a better example."
Well, I can tell you definitely my background and the way that I was raised and things that I went through. Uh, I did not want to bring that past into my now life and bring that and introduce that to my. I've been through a lot. A lot has happened in my past where I don't want to have to repeat that, and breaking chain bondages and stuff like that. is big for me now. Not wanting my kids to live in the same type of environment. I did grow up in a household where yelling and screaming and fighting and living in close to the projects, being around gang members and all that stuff, um, was not really having good role models. Um, you know, Now it's more of I don't want to repeat those cycles with my kids. I don't want to repeat any of the past of the negativity and the screaming and putting down and it's hard to break. I can tell you that it's been a challenge. Uh, I've been tested and I've been put to the test with certain situations where I need to kind of just okay. I'm trying to do different. And that starts with me. I think in order for me to make change, not just with my kids, but to be able to do change with my circle, I have to be the change first. I have to change myself. I have to be different. I have to talk positive. I have to be affirmative with what I do and represent that in a way where I'm being more like God than men. um and having difficult childhoods, there's a lot that you have to deal with now as an adult, that, to be honest, I didn't think I was going to bring up. um just to give some reference, I was married once in my earlier younger years, and I think that was more out of pressure because I was with that specific person for such a long time, that it was more of like, well, I kind of have to. Now, with my wife, and she's taught me a lot because when I met her, I was still broken. I was still in the middle of trying to figure my life out, having kids, having to rebuild my life, having to restart all over again. I think restarting all over again once you're kind of been in a relationship and having to start all over is a lot emotionally. It's a lot. Physically, it takes a lot out of you. Mentally, spiritually, where it came to the point where I was kind of lost. And then my wife came along. My wife came along. She went through a similar background of aggressiveness and yelling in a household, and she started to make the changes for herself. And when she would tell me, "Hey, babe, well, let's go to church and this and that," and I was like, "Okay, I don't want to go now," not wanting to participate, you know what I mean? And I think because I was in my feels, I think I was at a point in my life where I was kind of like, well, God ain't got me. He ain't getting me right now. I'm suffering right now, But again, I think it has to do a lot with maturity. I think it has to do a lot with uh, uh, how far you are in your spiritual life with God and how connected you are to Him. Because I can tell that if I was in the stage that I'm in now, I don't think I would have handled certain situations the way that I handled it. Now that I'm more mature and I understand things a lot better, and now that I'm able to have something that I can fall on, and that thing that I can fall on is God. I fall on Him first. I reach out to Him first, and then with my inner circle, right? One thing that I've learned a lot, coming to church and being in men's group and joining, and very careful of who I'm speaking my life into and who I'm sharing my life into, because some people I can talk to them about something and they can take that information and they can take that thing to a whole nother level. And I'm like, bro, that's not what the whole conversation is about. I was kind of coming to you as a friend, expressing my feelings. So being very careful and very guarded of who you share. I know that all of us are going through it, through different stages in life, but sometimes when you share certain conversations, when people are going through that rough patch or they're trying to figure their life out, sometimes that can be ammo to hold against you or just to talk behind your back. So I've learned to uh, guard my heart and really watch who I let in my inner circle. There's very, very, very little friends. I mean, from back then till now, I can say my circle went from being super huge to super tiny. Um, I think that's a good thing. I think I've had to cut people out of my life. And I heard this in one of the messages that I want to say was Pastor Adam or Pastor Diego, but certain people are in your life for a season, and then some are meant to be in your life forever, and some of are maybe just meant to be there for a season, and that's it, and it kind of faded, and that's what's happened a lot with a lot of friendships. They saw that I was making changes where I wanted to be positive. I didn't want to go drinking to get all messed up. It's one thing going out on a date night or going out with your friends and you have one drink, and it's another thing going out with your friends and getting drunk. You know what I mean? And I've learned
I know.
that, and that's where people started dropping like flies. People did not like that change, um, and they're because they're not ready, and I don't know if they're going to be ready. And to be honest, I had to say, well, if you cannot honor those wishes that I have, that we'll go hang out. I just don't want to do all that stuff that we were doing before because I'm not in that walk anymore. I'm trying to do better for myself. I'm trying to show example to my boys because I have three boys, three young men that are eventually going to be leading their home, and I need to teach them better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. And I think a lot of preachers do say when men get to a certain age, they get married, they're starting to become a dad. That's when a lot of things change, right? You have three boys in the house. Imagine the example that you set for the three boys. What are they looking at, right?
Yeah,
Having that set, well, obviously it motivates you to do better, right?
yeah,
It can't not, right? It's just you taking responsibility. So I want to honor you for that, taking on the responsibility of the leader, of the father, of the example role. Because let's be real, not everybody is doing right.
yeah.
So I want to honor you for that, bro. You've been definitely doing a great job showing up and show, like I see it in your voice, right? That yes, they're wilding out sometimes, like playing around with high energy, right? They're cool. But there's at the end of the day, they got manners.
Yeah,
They got manners. They know how to interact with other kids, other people, right? So I see it in them,
yeah,
right? Does it, even though some of your boys are like, "Hey, let me see the basketball," it's still exciting. It's part of
yeah,
being a boy,
yeah.
right? So I
Yeah.
love it. I love seeing you doing that.
You know what? I can tell you that it hasn't been easy. Um, if for those that don't know, and I don't even think I don't know if I've shared this with you, but we're a blended family.
Hmm.
I had one from my previous marriage. My wife has one from her previous marriage, and then me and my wife have one. So that alone has been a challenge uh, to have a blended family of dealing with a mother or a baby mama per se on my side and a baby daddy on her side. Um, Everyone has their opinion, but I can say that at least for my part and my side, um, it was tough at the beginning, but we've been able to make it work, and we've been able to work well as a blended family. So I think that alone in itself, it's a big challenge to have a blended family. And I think even with the blended family, you have to work harder because now you have someone that, like for example, my oldest, my 16-year-old, I came into his life when he was 4, right? So now it's like now I'm not just working to win your mom, but now I'm winning to win his heart, right? So that alone, being in a blended family is so hard. Mm. And I didn't come from a blended family. We're all from the same mom and dad, but I come from divorced parents. So that I know what it is to have divorced parents and live in two separate households. Unfortunately, I ended up repeating that cycle, but because of that, now I want to do everything past that better, to give my kids a different life, you know?
I love it. I love it. That's part of breaking the cycle. Maybe you made the same mistake before, right? But breaking the cycle is not make the same mistake again,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So no one else down the family tree is making that mistake.
yeah,
Um, so I'm curious, right? Um, obviously you have a blended family. Your wife right now, that's from a blended family. What are some of the like the hardest things you can think of? Give me some examples of like, okay, this is I never thought it was gonna be. I can't imagine this is possible, but you guys made it through.
well, you got to keep in mind, you know, when I'm dealing with two different people, they're going to have different opinions, right? Um, we're dealing with two separate households. They might be certain rules here for my kids, but then when my kid goes back, the rules might be different over there. So having to work that, it's kind of like, hey, well, my kid got in trouble over here, and this is why X, Y, and Z. I would appreciate if you can continue just talking to him about X, Y, and Z to make sure that we don't have the same. So just having to learn to not take sides uh is difficult, right? Because I can't be taking, you know, someone else's side when I'm married to my wife, and I'm putting my wife to the side and taking her, my baby mama's side, you know what I mean? That's very hard to learn how to deal with it, because at the beginning, to me, it was like, oh my god, this is too much, having to deal with two very different personalities, two very different people, two different opinions. So that alone for me was one of the things that I didn't think I was going to have to deal with. I thought it was like, okay, well, he comes and he goes. I take him, I drop him off. He's here when he's here. He's there when he's there, and that's it. But no, there's a lot more to that, and it's difficult.
Right. Um, just the communication, right? You were saying just the communication between the households
Hmm.
and really being mindful of like what values are we setting for the kid, right? You might have different values than you know the other family, right?
Yeah.
But still able to set the same set of values
Hmm.
for not only just essentially not just for your kids, right? But also for you.
Hmm.
Like you gotta able to set the line there, and I think that's pretty cool just to know that yes, it's difficult, but you guys worked it through,
Yeah.
right? It's difficult, but you guys work it all the way through. Um, I love it. I love it. So, I want to dive a little deeper into another topic. So basically, right now you're working full time. You have a side hustle,
Yep.
doing the things that you do,
Yep.
right? Um, first, let me ask you this: what got you started into DJing? First, number one.
So my dad has a background with promoting clubs. And when he came to the States, that's pretty much, he started doing comedy, and then it's at some point he started promoting groups that now are very famous groups. But you know, when you come from, you know, another, you know, come from Mexico to the States, you don't know the English, you don't know paperwork, you don't know contracts and stuff like that. And my dad was promoting a lot of these now famous groups that are Latin groups. Um, Started getting into that club life and promoting clubs and bringing groups to the clubs and advertising them to promote them and get the crowd into the club to pay for tickets. Um, and music has always been around in our family. So it's something that I've liked, is music. And then once I started going to the clubs with my dad, because at some point my dad started doing like classes for like dancing during on a weekend during the day. So we started you know, going and teaching this little kids how to dance a certain type of genre of music. And then we used to perform for the sheriff's department in LA County for Parks and Recs. My aunt used to work works in entertainment. So I used to do that and dance at the parks, with songs and stuff like that for fairs and stuff like that. So that's how the music inclination kind of started. And then once I started seeing like the DJ stuff, it kind of intrigued me. I'm like, oh man, that sounds good. You can make people dance and you can make people happy and you can, so then I started getting a little interested in, and then little by little I started dabbing into it, and little by little I started researching how do you DJ and how do you mix songs, and um, step by step, started buying my first equipment that my dad helped me with, and then from there started DJing with CDs, having to carry crates of CDs to parties, and then it just kind of took off from there. I did it all through high school. I did it after high school, and I think really when I really took it serious, more of like, man, maybe I can make this a thing. Um, was after high school when my maturity started kicking in a little bit more. When I started realizing, okay, I can make a living doing this. I can make extra cash, or however I want to do it. Um, and then just practicing, upgrading my equipment little by little as gigs were starting to come in. I would upgrade the computer. I would upgrade from CDs to computer, upgrade my table, upgrade my speed, and then eventually it kind of just became a thing. And all of a sudden, I had a full-on DJ business. And I just started building that clientele, back in the days, when I was charging $300 for like 8 or 10 hours a party. I mean, no one charges that anymore, but that's what I was charging back in the days. And I think about it, I'm like, man, what was I doing, man? But at the time, that was expensive.
Right.
Now I mean, I don't think you'll find anyone that will do 300 and $300 for not even half of that, maybe 300 an hour or for 2 hours, or who knows. But little by little, I kind of just started getting better and practicing and building my clientele. A lot of the clientele that I build up is, word of mouth, or people recommending me. Oh, I hired this guy for my quinceañera, for my wedding, for my daughter's quinceañera, for the birthday party, whatever. And then little by little, people just kind of started throwing my name out there, and I started building my clientele in LA County. Now I live in the IE. Now I'm trying to build my clientele over here. Doing a lot of church events, and then events out of church, and just networking. And it became something where it became a full time thing. And now I have a full time job, and then I do this full time. Luckily, a lot of the times my events don't clash with my work. Um, but I've also built a good reputation with my work. If for whatever thing I need a day off PTO, I just request it and I take it, and then I go DJ, and and they're very good about that, and seeing my business, and now it's a full-time business. It's something that's full-time. Um, yes, and it had its ups and its downs. I can tell you, my the one that has really been a down for me was when COVID hit.
Hmm.
Obviously, everything stopped. You know, it completely stopped, where people just obviously weren't doing anything. We couldn't do anything other than be home. And at some point I was DJing virtually, for tips and stuff like that. A lot of my other my DJ friends started doing the live streaming and DJing that way, and then we found a new way of trying to bring in some revenue just to kind of keep people alive with music through COVID. I think that has been the toughest time,
Hmm.
was during COVID. Everything got shut down. Luckily, I work in the medical and dental field, so that didn't stop. If anything, it increased a lot more. So I had something to fall under, and that's where I thought about when COVID hit. I was just thinking, maybe I can do this at full time, maybe open an office, and then COVID hit, and then I was like, God was watching over me. There was something in me that was telling me, just hang on. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't feeling it like, okay, it's time. Let's go open a location. Let's find a place just for some office space so I can meet with my clients. And then COVID hit, and I was glad I didn't push for it. because it wasn't meant for it. If anything, after COVID, it came back stronger because everyone wanted to party and everyone wanted to be out of their house. But I think out of all this time that I've been DJing, that has been the toughest. Where I think for everyone, regardless of what you were doing, it was a tough time for everyone. It was hard. Um, but it is, it has its seasons. But once you establish your clientele for this type of work, you can stay pretty consistent all year round. Yes, there'll be some months where you'll have higher events, and there's some months where you might have one or two, and then there's some months where you're booked every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That's just the nature of the work. But I think I've built it enough to where I can keep things consistent enough to still come in. And I enjoy it. I love seeing people having fun, and being able to get the dance floor full with the music. That I think that especially when the crowd is like hype, that just gets me hype, and then that just makes me want to, like, that's when I'll tell my client, you know what, I'll give you an extra hour for free. Don't worry about it. It's happening right now. So,
Yeah.
and then I have gigs where it's like, man, when is this thing over? Because just the crowd is just not a dancing crowd whatsoever. I've had both. But yeah, it has its ups and its downs. It's nowadays, a lot of my friends say, everyone's a DJ now, right? Now you can just grab a speaker and, but it's not the same, right? No, that's what I say. But I don't know. I've been hearing that a lot. It's like, no, everyone can be a DJ. So, well, how can
But
everyone
not
be a
everybody can
DJ?
DJ. No, that, I don't think music is the biggest part of DJing.
Yeah,
Biggest part of DJing is reading the crowd,
yeah,
right? Knowing the crowd, knowing what gets the crowd going.
yeah,
Like you might play hip hop and everybody's going crazy.
yeah,
Well, not if you're not a DJ, you might not see that, right? Or like if you're playing some good oldies and everybody starts singing, you better play more of
yeah,
those. Forget the playlist you have prepared,
yeah,
kind of thing, right?
yep,
That's what you're gonna go with.
yeah. And
So no, not everybody can DJ. I'm gonna back you up 100% on that one.
yes, you got to have a good ear to be able to beat match and all that stuff. But you kind of have to be adaptable being a DJ, because you are gonna be dealing
Yes.
with clients that are very strict. I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear that. And then there's some where it's like, dude, just handle your business. Just whatever it gets the crowd going, you're good. So you have to be adaptable to be able to cater to both of them, but also recognize that sometimes that client might not be for you. I've had to learn that. And sometimes I've had to tell my clients, you know what? I don't think I'm the best DJ suited for your event. And those are usually, they start off really rough from the beginning, like demanding a lot of things from them. I'm like, well, I mean, I know you're hiring me for a service, but take it easy now. You know what I mean? Like, so I can kind of tell when it's going to be like a smooth client, or where I might have to be a little bit more. Uh, have more follow-ups in meetings with, hey, and reassurance of like, hey, don't worry about it, it's going to be okay, I got this, and this is why we're having these meetings. Because sometimes those events are special moments, right? Quinceañeras, weddings, those are, you don't want nothing to go wrong during those events, right? As the person getting married, or as the quinceañera, you want everything to go good. So I have to assure them that, hey, I got you, don't worry about it. This is why we're having these 4 follow-up meetings for your event, because I want to learn for you. I want to learn what you do and what you want for your event, and then let me put it into an itinerary for you. We'll revise it, we'll work on it together, and we'll go. And there's sometimes where, to be honest, I've had to tell some clients, I'm sorry, I don't think I'm the one to make your event what you want, because they put demands that are sometimes like ridiculous. I'm like, it's like the day of the wedding, and you're asking me to change half of the songs that you wanted to play for your special dance or something. You know what I mean? So Sometimes it's doable, sometimes it's not, but you have to be able to be adaptable to those situations when being a DJ. And like you said, you have to be able to read the crowd because I can play all the bangers, but that might not be that might not be the crowd. You know, maybe it's just all Hispanic music versus hip hop or reggaeton versus salsa. You have to be able to read the crowd and be able um, to be quick to change and adapt because what you don't want is have a client and you do an event and then the next day sending you a 1-star Yelp review saying this guy didn't get anybody on the dance floor, you know. But
This guy killed the dance floor. He's a
yeah,
DJ.
and I didn't kill it in a good way, I killed it in the bad way, you know. But you know
Right.
what? I've had clients where their families are just not dancing crowds, but they tell me, hey, the bride and groom will tell me we had fun. The very few friends that we invited from work had a blast. I'm sorry, not everyone danced. You know, half of our family is not dancers. They're just not a dancing people. They can care less for parties. But everyone else that we invited, work but friends and friends danced. We loved it. We gave you a 5-star Yelp review, you know. But you have to kind of be able to read the crowd with music and be able to kind of get them going. And sometimes it's just background music, right? It's like the conference. I was just covering in between bands, to keep the crowd going. And we still had some people dancing and all that stuff because I wasn't meant to be there to throw a party. I was there to cover in between the bands. The bands were the main entertainment. And you have to be open to those type of events because every event is going to be different. I can have 5 different weddings, and I can tell you that all 5 different weddings are going to be different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no way two events going to be the same,
Yeah,
right? You're going to have different ethnic
yeah,
groups. You're going to have different people, personalities, characters. You're going to have one that's going to have like crazy dancing crowds. The other one just like people just want to
uh,
hang out and chill,
yeah.
right? Like, of course, it's not going to be the same, but like it's so important to adapt, right? Like you said, and adapting on the spot, understanding your client so you can adapt your style
Hmm.
beforehand. I think what's cool is like I don't. I mean, I've only hired a DJ a couple times, but never had more than one meeting with the DJ
Hmm.
to like really get the event going.
Hmm.
So it's to think that way, right? I think it's really cool that it just shows that you care, right? It
Yes.
shows that you care for your clients,
And I want to
right?
show up
It's
prepared. I'm not that type of DJ where it's like, okay, we'll figure it out when I get there. Usually for me, even if it's a birthday party, I have at least a minimum of 4 meetings with my clients just to make sure things haven't changed, time frame hasn't changed, certain songs that they wanted me to play for the birthday or for first dance or for the honeymoon dance or for father daughter dance, whatever it is, nothing has changed. So for me, it's more of being prepared than having to just walk into a venue and be like, okay, well, what are we doing here? You know, I don't like that approach. I don't like to walk in and be unprepared. That's one thing that I don't like to be late. Even for church, my wife can attest to this. The earlier the better we can leave, so I can sit in my same 2 front row seats by the stage. I want to sit in the same seat. Whatever I have to do, if I have to be there an hour early to get the same seats, then I will be there an hour. I hate being late to anything. So things happen, emergencies happen. Sometimes things, accidents in the freeway, whatever, you flat tire, whatever. Those are out of our control. But if I can control me being on time, I will be there on time. And I do not like to show up unprepared to do things. Um, so
it's so such a simple concept, right? Just if we hired you, don't show up late.
later.
Like if we hired you to come at 4, don't show up at 4:10. Start setting up. Like you're not gonna get a 5-star review from me after that,
Or maybe I'll just show up for dinner and then once dinner starts.
right? We hired you to start at 4. You come at 6. Why am I paying 4 hours for 2?
Yep.
Like these are they're simple little things, right? Like they're not very complicated things. But how come it is so difficult for some people to like just get there on time?
You know what? I've learned and I've seen that it may have to do just with how we were taught,
Hmm.
I think if you're not taught responsibility, uh not just for you, like for your things, like if I buy an expensive laptop, am I just gonna be tossing it on the floor and not be responsible for it, or am I gonna be like, man, I really worked really hard for this laptop, I gotta try to keep it in its best shape and try to make it last forever. I think it has to do a lot with maybe a father presence was not involved, maybe you were homeless, or maybe you just went through a rough childhood, and there was no one around to show you better. And that's what me and my wife try to do with our boys, is try to teach them responsibility. I'll give you a perfect example. My kids are 10, 11, and 16, and I tell them, hey, you guys are three boys, three young men, the pressure's on you already because you're a boy to be able to be a good leader for when you have your family. So what I'm teaching you, when I'm telling you, hey, I need your help cutting the grass. Hey, I need you pick up after the dog when he goes uses the restroom outside. Um, Picking up your room, putting your shoes back where they go, learning how to iron, learning how to cook, learning how to wash the dishes. I'm teaching them responsibility that you're gonna have to do this at some point in your life. When me and mom and grandma and your elders are not here no more, you're gonna have to do this for yourself, but then you're also gonna have to learn how to do this for your family. So when you start having your family, you're able to teach that to your kids, and how to be responsible, be respectful, being on time. If you say that you're going to be there for whatever event, that you're there, and not be known for that person that, oh, I don't want to invite them because he always tells me he's going to come, but then he that always cancels. There's always something that he can't come. I don't think it's just, I don't think that's something that's taught, but I think too, kind of common sense. I think that's hard to teach, is common sense. It's either you have it or you don't, I think. But to me, it's kind of like, if I commit to a job and my job says you have to be clocked in at 8 o'clock working, uh, I'm gonna be there at 7:30 to make sure that I find parking, and I'm sitting at my computer 10, 15 minutes early, so that I can clock in on time. That's what happens with my regular job. I mean, I work all of LA County, so sometimes I leave my house at 4:30 in the morning, so that to ensure that I'm getting there wherever I have to be, at least with the 30-minute grace period, because I have to anticipate traffic. I have to anticipate finding parking. If I'm not reporting to my office and I have to be traveling around location to location, anticipation of things, right? So just being prepared. But a lot of those things sometimes have to be taught. Responsibility. You can't just expect the kid to know what they're doing when they're growing up. And I think that's something that as parents, whether you're a single parent or parents where there's two parents present, I think that is very important to teach your kids. It's responsibility and commitment to things. Um, but most importantly is committing to God first before you commit to anything else. And I think with having that at forefront, God being your leader, uh, He will pretty much set the pavers for you to walk on, and do what you have to do. He will take care of you. He will provide. He will be there for you, whether you're doing good or you're doing bad. It's up to us not to forget that He's always there, no matter if we're doing good or we're doing bad. So I think uh, just being on time, and just being uh, not just on time, but just being responsible is something that it's taught, and I think it's very good if it's taught at a young age, because then kids will start recognizing that young, and then they can always have that memory for you. Man, my dad taught me this. My dad taught me how to build a shed. My dad taught me how to uh, change the oil on my car, or change the tire, or do simple stuff, or how to change a light bulb. Nowadays you ask a kid, can you change the light bulb? They have no idea how to change the light bulb. You know? So
Right. Um, I love that you talk about responsibility. A lot of things that I'm seeing, I'm observing, inside of just how I raise the things I'm taking into how I raise my daughter right now. Um, it has a lot to do with responsibility.
Mhm.
I gotta take responsibility for being the best man I can be, being the best husband I can be, so I can show my daughter what kind of man he should be expecting when she's growing up. Right? I think one of my mentors used to say, doesn't matter like if I have a son, I'm gonna be the example for him. If I have a daughter, I'm gonna be the example of who she
Mhm.
needs to look for.
Mhm.
Right? Things like that. That's what really ingrained in me. And hearing you say that, like just understanding that you're 10 years ahead of me, 17 ahead of me actually, but understanding that responsibility never goes away.
Yeah.
That's such a motivation for me. I don't see it as a baggage. It's such a
Yeah.
motivation.
But if I can tell you, Ed, too, responsibility comes with a lot, and I think also being part of being a responsible parent has to do with being present, because you can be in the room with your kids but you're not present with the kids, or you're not present with your wife. I can be in the room, they can be doing their own thing and be like, oh yeah, I spend time with them, we're on the same house. You have to be put your mind to what you're doing in the moment. For example, when we go watch the kids play sports, right? Am I going to see the game but I'm on the phone all the time, or am I going to the game and acknowledging my kid? Oh, go, run, catch, pass. Then I'm being engaged. They see me. They feel the presence of mom and dad there. So I think that's part of being a responsible parent too, is making sure that you're present in the moment. And because you can have your daughter, you can be holding your daughter, but are you talking to your daughter? She's a baby right now, but are you still talking to her? Are you making her smile, or are you just holding her, but you have your iPhone on your right hand, playing solitaire or doing
Yeah,
scrolling through social media? So
yeah,
I think that's part of responsibility too of being a parent as well.
I absolutely agree. So diving more into that, right? We talk about your definition of excellence. It's one part of it is knowing that you got to be excellence in God. The other part of it is understanding, you got to get out there and yes, you got to still make money, do these things, but you got to be excellence in God. And what kind of responsibility do you think that you, me, and everybody, every man have? What kind of responsibility does a man have in order to bring the family closer to God, in order to bring friends closer to God? What kind of responsibility should a man have in that sense?
I think for sure, not be reliant on man, not be reliant on money, not be reliant on materialistic things. Um, I think if you want to have a great relationship, not just with your kids but with your wife, you have to first have a relationship with God, which is something that I've learned the hard way. Because I wasn't close to. I mean, I grew up in a Catholic church, and I was kind of not necessarily forced, but we had to go to church because that was the thing you do on Sundays. You go to church. But was I sitting there paying attention? No, I wasn't. Um, so I've learned throughout the time that things are not gonna fall in place if I'm not talking to the man upstairs, right? Having that connection to God as a man will help with everything else. It will help to lead your home. It will help to lead your marriage. It will help to lead your single life if you're single. It will help you lead your children when you have children. It will help you how to lead at work, because I can tell you that many times at work I've had to change my cap from being a worker into a man of God, and sometimes I have to speak light and life into someone because of whatever they're going through. um, I've done that at work. I've done that with friends. um, I have not always been like that. I was lost, and I have a great support system at home. having a wife that's on the same page with me, with not just the kids and how we manage our home, but in agreement that in order for things to fall into place and in order for our marriage to continue strong and continue to grow healthy, responsible kids, God has to be the center of everything. And I think with that alone and praying to God and talking to God and having that time with God will allow you to figure out the rest of your life of situations that you're going to encounter, because that's life, right? You know, like Frank Sinatra said, that's life. You know, there's ups and there's downs, and you're going to go through it, and you're going to have moments where everything's going good, and there's moments where everything's going bad. And I can tell you, you know, me and my wife had a rough patch when we moved to the IE, man. We struggled, you know. We both ended up moving jobs. Um, Medical situations happen, finance situations happen. Um, the tough got tough. It really got tough, and you know, I can tell you that even now we're just feeling, you know, the relief of like, okay, things are kind of settling for us. Um, but even though we were going through that, I could have been like, screw this. I'm not gonna pray. I'm not gonna go to church. I ain't trying to do all that right now. I gotta put in the overtime. Yeah, I was putting in the overtime, but I still made it a habit to, we're gonna go to church on Wednesdays, we're gonna go to church on Sundays. And we still committed to that, and we still committed to praying, encouraging each other. I think that's also something that makes you a great leader and a great man, is knowing how to lead. Whether you're single or married, you need to learn how to lead yourself as a man of what you want going into a marriage and into a relationship with someone, and vice versa also for a woman to know that. But if you're married, knowing how to lead that, and that's also something that I've learned, is how to be a better leader, because I haven't always been a great leader in the past, and recognizing and knowing that is the first step, is knowing like, okay, I'm not doing good right now. I keep putting myself into these situations, you know. It's like, you know, why do I keep putting myself in this predicament? Why do I keep feeling a certain type of way? And first recognizing it, and then once you recognize it, is rectifying it, and what is it that you're gonna do to change that? But at the end, it still comes down to, you gotta pray about it, bro. Like you have to, no matter what. There's no way around it. You have to talk to God in everything you do. Without that, things, you know, can things get done? Yeah. Are they gonna come as easy as it will if you have God in your life? Maybe not. But at the end of the tunnel, the answer is still God. You know,
God, that's
it
great.
ain't gonna happen.
That's great. That's great. That's so good. Uh, in the topic of leadership, you said you weren't always a good leader. So what are some of the things that you learned throughout your journey that had made you a better leader, made you a better example for your kids and your family?
Bro, you didn't carry out. My ego, my pride. I think, come on, Ed. I think those are the two things that I really have to, that I've learned to put aside, because being prideful is not gonna do anything for you. You know, it may do something here, you know, within men, but the glory of God ain't gonna do anything, man. Um, it's not gonna make me a good leader. It's not gonna make me a good example of what I want to be to my boys, to my wife. Being supportive and encouraging. Um, Even the way you talk to someone, you know, even, you know, changing the way that I used to talk with the F bombs and that thing, that, and, you know, changing just my vocabulary alone, you know, has made a big difference. But I think letting go of my pride and my ego, um, r- really has um, changed me. Having kids have made me very soft. I used to be a troublemaker. It made me soft in a good way. I can tell you. When you have kids, man, they take your heart, man. Dude, I still cry over Father's Day cards. They gave me a Father's Day card, and I can't even read them because then it starts making me cry, and I'm like, oh, really, this. So I think that alone, just letting go of my pride and my ego, was something that was very hard. Being accountable, learning to take advice, um, and taking the advice from your wife. A lot of the times, we're like, bro, chill. You don't know what you're talking about. You're a woman. You don't know what you're talking about. But, I can tell you that having open ears to listen to my wife for a lot of things. She has a lot of wisdom. Um, she's very good with just being there, being supportive, being encouraging. Knowing when to ask for help. Um, in anything, you know. She supports everything I do, whether it's my work or or my DJ stuff. My current controller, she bought it for me for Father's Day a couple years ago, and I wanted this nice Pioneer SZ, nice, controller that I wanted. And I'm like, yeah, I would talk about it, man. I'm gonna save up for it. I'll get, and then she goes supporting. She's supporting the cause. She bought it for me. So I think having an open heart, to receive, but to be able to give to, having an open mind, also quick to listen, slow to speak, is also something that I've learned. Um, Learning to not to yell. For me, one of the things with me and my wife at the beginning was when we would have a disagreement and the voice, will started to go up, I would shut down, because I came from a home where the yelling was constant and that shut me down. So for me, when I want to have a conversation with someone, and if it gets to the point where, okay, now you're screaming, now I'm kind of done with the conversation. Now I'm not listening. So learning the tone of voice on how to talk to not just my wife, but the tone of voice that I use for my kids. And if I feel a certain type of way that I'm not showing it and I'm not like yelling it out or throwing it out at you, um, uh, those are just some of the things that I can think of that I've kind of had to change for myself in order to be better.
Obviously, there was a lot of emotion happening, and there's definitely stories there. I'm not gonna dive deeper into it here. Whenever you're ready, I know you'll share it. And I know there's a whole journey of. It's not like, oh, the ego's here, let me just put it in my pocket and that's done
Yeah,
with, right? There's a whole journey of, all right, let me kill the flesh one
yeah,
bit at a time. Let me kill my flesh in this way and that way, and then let the
yeah,
spirit take control. It's a process.
yeah,
It is a long process. I want to shorten it so bad, but I can't. Right?
yeah.
I want to shortcut this so bad, but I know at the end of the day, God's gonna work on me. God's gonna work in me. So all the things that I work for is gonna start working for me.
Yeah,
I keep repeating that to myself because God will eventually work everything out, right?
yeah.
I love the way you just said, yes, there's gonna be a lot of emotional Father's Days, probably
Hmm.
many more to go, many more to go. But those are beautiful days. Those are such beautiful days, and I just know I'm looking forward to those days. But when I cry, I'm probably gonna tell you about it,
We'll have to do a
right?
podcast on it too.
Yeah, well, definitely. This podcast is gonna keep going, so there's no way I'm not talking about it on here, right? Um, no, so there's definitely many things that uh get that they'll continue to happen, for us to get better, take responsibility, really put God at the center of it. Um, that's been the theme of this whole thing. Like, put God at the center of our lives and take responsibility on what we can't control and what we can do, right?
Hmm.
And I think the biggest question now is biggest question I want to ask you now is, you have the DJ business, you have a full-time job, you have 3 kids, a wife, all that stuff. God is the center of your life, and you take responsibility in being the example. What the heck? What else? How do you do all this all together?
Oh, you know what? It's prioritizing things that are important.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for us, going to church, being involved in church, and when we mean being involved, it's not just going and listening to service, but actually serving. Uh, is very important. That's a priority for both of us. So prioritizing needs, what is needs to be done first, and things that can wait and can hold off till the weekend or another day. But I can tell you, obviously we got to pay bills, so going to work and DJing is something that I have to do, and my wife has to, goes to work too. Bills don't stop coming, unfortunately. So those are responsibilities that you have to get done, but also most importantly is making sure that we make time for God and to pray, to talk to him, to go to service, when every Wednesday, every Sunday, go to a men's group or join a neighborhood group. All of that is what has helped both of us to be better. uh, Things will align on their own when you start being involved with God and really praying to Him and reaching out to Him. Things will fall into place, and things that are not meant to be, they're not meant to be. They'll fall out on their own. You don't even have to do much. They just will disappear on their own, and then you'll think about it 3 weeks later. Oh, what happened with that thing I was supposed to do? Oh, okay, never mind. It kind of got figured out. But um prioritizing, I think that's the most important thing, is prioritizing what's important in your life. And you got to figure out, is things of the world are more important than God, and if they are, then you know there's still some work that needs to be done there.
Yeah, that's great. So top priority is God, then family, then community, and then obviously we gotta work. It's, if we don't work, we're
Hmm.
not gonna have a place to live. We're not gonna have water,
Yeah.
electricity, all that stuff, right? So
Hmm.
those are the priorities that you have, and on. I mean, I know you do a lot, right? I know you do a lot. Like, that's. I'll be real. I know I do a lot, but sometimes I look at you and I'm like, I don't know how you do it, right?
And you know what? I work
It's
long hours. I can tell you that.
yeah, 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 you do, right? So I'm like, all right, this guy, he does a lot, but he still shows up. He's at church. You're at church all the time. Every time I walk out of the doors, I know I can basically count on you being there. So,
Hmm.
part of the reason why I wanted to have this conversation is just like, let me understand you better. I want to really understand you better and really get to know you better, right? And part of it is like, how does he show up all the time? He's there all the time, every time, right? I can almost guarantee myself if I go to church, Alfred's gonna be there. Like, that's the level of consistency there is, and I love it. I love seeing you. I love seeing your kids. Right, I think 2 of them is still in. No, just one of them now that's in the kids ministry. Right,
Just Mason. My two
the other
other
one.
ones are with youth now. Aaron and Wesley
Yeah,
are in youth, and
yeah,
Mason's
yeah,
still with the future kids. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So I see Mason in there. He's hanging out, playing, and just having a really, really positive energy to him. I mean, obviously, it's not. It doesn't just. He doesn't pull that out of nowhere. He gets that from his house, his home, right? So he import that out to other places. So definitely, it shows a lot about how you raise your kid and all that stuff. Just want to give you honor, give you praise on that, and you've been doing a
Thank
great
you,
job, man. Like,
thank you,
you're someone that I look up to as a father.
thank you,
Um,
thank you.
and I appreciate you always being here, being like, bro, just coming up, saying what's up, having conversations. I love it. I love it. Just want you. I needed you to know that part.
Thank you, Ed. I appreciate that. Same here. I enjoy the company. I enjoy conversation with you. When like you said, meeting each other at front, saying hi as we're passing by, or going to volleyball group and doing all that stuff. I'm trying to surround myself with positive people, but people that are trying to walk the same walk that I am. With God and I heard it once. They say, you become who you surround yourself around with. And right now, I can tell you that myself and my wife, we try to surround ourselves with positivity, people that are doing life with God, and people that are within church and expanding our friendship network within church. Um, and just positivity is a big thing that we both want to be around. Is just we just want to be around positive people, people that are doing the same thing that we're doing, and going to church and going to group and having community with each other. Have a guys' day, whether it's volleyball, going golfing. Same for my wife, doing her thing with her friends and having a girls' night for breakfast or whatever it is. You know, knowing to be able to have that time, together as a married couple, but then also being able to have your time to do your thing. For me, when I go golfing or if I go do volleyball or when I go work, even for me, that's therapy. Sometimes just DJing. Same thing for my wife. For her, it might just be getting a massage or going out and hanging out with her friends at their house and they make pozole or whatever. So being able to have your own time, have time for the kids, and then time for each other. Is it hard? Yes, it is. I can tell you that. Having to learn how to balance all of that when it's hard, and like I was mentioning to you at the beginning, when we moved out here, it was really tough for us. Settling down, getting used to the kids, to a new school, new friends, a new neighborhood, new area, losing jobs, changing jobs, uh, health conditions, health problems. Everything was just kind of, piling up on top of each other uh, was difficult, but hanging in there with each other and encouraging each other and continuing to still show up, for service and serving, regardless, right? I think one thing that I can say that my wife and I do very good is we don't let our emotions kind of dictate what things, going to church and stuff like that, whether we're feeling good or bad. When you're feeling bad, you should be at church. It's probably when you should be more at churches when, you know. And I think
Right.
even on this Sunday service, one of the pastors said this is a hospital for the broken. You know,
That's right.
and if you're not broken, then help someone else that's broken. You know, if your walk in life right now is blooming and it's golden and things are going right for you and God is providing for you. There might be some people in church that need that. And we were actually just having a conversation with my wife earlier today and yesterday. We know with certain friendships that we have, knowing when to interfere and when not to interfere with certain situations. That's something that I'm still learning is a little bit more of learning to have better grace for for
Mm,
certain people when they're going through stuff, because I'm still not perfect and I'm still having to figure out things inside of me that I have to figure out for myself. So it's a constant growth. It's constant work. Being married doesn't stop, you from trying every day with your kids, because then the kids have their own little problems at school, right? Whether it's difficulty understanding homework or difficulty with other friends or just having a hard time at school, learning how to deal with those conflicts and how to talk to your kids about it and telling them that it's going to be okay and stuff like that. Um, Praying about it. So those, the work doesn't stop. It's constant work. Um, just like going to church. Being with God and praying. It's a lifestyle. And it's something that, if you commit, you have to commit to it. You can't be, lukewarm where you're hot and cold, um, like Katy Perry said, when you're hot and you're cold. You have to learn how to, uh, if you're in, you're in, and you got to just be open to it. One thing that was, I can tell you, that was hard for me is, and my wife is right here listening to this conversation, and she can see, she can say in the background that one of the biggest things for me was, hard to show my emotion, just because of the background and how I grew up with. It wasn't, really taught to, share your feelings and share how you feel, share this and share that. Maybe we shared it when we were going to counseling because my parents divorced, but beyond that, like, I wasn't taught to really show my emotions and kind of cry it out if I had to, scream it out, pray it out, whatever it is. Now, I mean, even just with the question that you asked me about my kids made me cry for everything, bro. Like, now I'm a softie. I may look, huge because I'm 6'3" and look tough, but these kids break me. You know, my wife sometimes, even sometimes when I talk to her about when I go to group or just a message that we listen to, even with the conference, we were sharing some feedback because, serving, we got a chance to listen to a little bit of the messages and for group sessions and stuff like that. And we talked about it, and now being able to talk about it and share my feelings, get emotional, is okay. I think that's one of the biggest things with men is that, you're a man, suck it up and deal with it. But that's not a good way to deal with things. Yes, we have to get up and still continue to do what we do, but it's okay to also, share your feelings. And I think that's where your close circle comes into play, and having that inner circle that you can trust with information, trust with opening up about certain situations, whether it's a struggle that you're going with your kids, a struggle that you're going within yourself, a struggle that you're going within within your marriage, whatever it is, having that inner circle that is not going to tell you the opposite of like, dude, screw your wife, let's just go out, go drink, and we'll get some out there when we're out there, or that's not the type of friends that I want anymore. That's not the type of circle that I want anymore. I want to be able to be around a circle where I can say, hey, dude, like, you know I'm going through it, this is what's happening, and I want to hear the encouragement, because I also don't want to come into my household and then kind of just lay it down on my kids and my wife and then have an attitude and be rude. And we work. Yes, we do. We have bad days. Yes. Do we sometimes don't want to have to deal with the kids when we come home? Yes, but unfortunately, you have to. You're a parent. You have to deal with your kids at all times. But recognizing that, when my wife is tired and vice versa, "Babe, don't worry about it. I got it. I'll cook. I'll do this. I'll clean." And just try to help. I help a lot at the house as much as I am at work. Whatever time I do get at home, I try to help as much as I can. Even the day that I'm remote, dropping them off, picking them up, and that includes my wife. Um, Showing up to kids events, if I can, and if I can make it happen, making it happen. And trying to have that balance. I think that's one thing that both me and my wife have really learned is how to balance ourselves with work, um, um, and life. Work and life. Having stressful days at work and still have to come home and deal with things at home and have to wash dishes and have to cook and do this and do that. Learning how to balance, but also knowing when to rest is very important. um like I mentioned to you at the beginning, we had a very long weekend with serving at the conference and all that. And I told him, oh, Sunday maybe we should just listen to the message online. We're both super exhausted. We were doing things at home that took a lot of energy, but we still showed up for conference in pain and throbbing feet and everything and headache and all the above, but we still showed up. And I told, hey, no, we let's just rest. We can hear the message online. Um, we hardly miss service. I mean, you see me, you see us all the time there. So knowing when to rest is very important too, because you also don't want to burn yourself out. Even God
Right.
talked about that, right? The seventh day, you got to sit down and just chill out. You know?
Absolutely. It's a balance, right? Like you said,
Yep.
it's a work and rest, and gotta be, community and family and everything else. It's all gotta be balanced. Uh, I love the message, man. And thank you for hopping on. I really do appreciate it. I'm fed from this conversation, so I want to thank you for that.
Thank
Um,
you, Ed.
you have anything else? You have anything else to add to this conversation? Anything that you feel like I haven't asked and that you want to talk about?
No, to be honest, thank you for even thinking of me to be on the podcast. I was very excited. I was telling my wife I was asked to be on the podcast, so that's pretty cool. We were talking about a podcasting and doing all that stuff, but I know it takes time to and commitment to have to do those things. But I think you great question. You covered most of it. I think it's very encouraging message and a very encouraging podcast for those that are feeling alone, feeling like, man, I just kind of need to hear it. Sometimes hearing a story from someone else will uplift you. A lot of the times when we go to
Exactly.
service and I hear some of the stories from other pastors and stuff like that, and I listen to them and they share their stories. Sometimes that makes me feel like, damn, okay, I'm not the only one that has gone through that, 'cause sometimes you feel like, am I the only one that's going through all this stuff right now?
Yeah.
So sometimes when you hear
Absolutely.
it from someone else, and sometimes, hearing the message and hearing things from someone else's perspective, encourages you to be like, okay, I kind of got a wind of energy. I got to step up my game. So I think you're doing great work with the podcast. I wish you nothing
Thank you.
but the best with the podcast. I wish nothing but success for the podcast, that it flourishes, it becomes what it needs to become. God will be, watching and taking care of you. I appreciate again that you even considered me on being on the podcast, and thank you for taking the time to get to know me better,
Of
through the
course.
podcast, and wanting to know who I am and where I come from and what my story is. I really do appreciate that. Not everyone in life gets the opportunity to be able to share their story in a platform where it can make a big difference. Podcasts are a thing right now, and um, you can make a big impact with podcasts. So just thank you for allowing me to come on here and sharing my story, and for the questions and the time.
It was fun. It was definitely filling my cup. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And one last question for you before we leave. This is how I end every podcast, right? Um, if you were to imagine that today's your last day, you're disappearing tomorrow, nobody's gonna know your name, besides one message that you're going to write on a piece of post-it note, 2 by 2 post-it note.
Mhm.
What are you gonna write on there? What message would you leave for everybody else to remember?
Um, what I would put on that message, I would say, get to know God. You know, get to know God. Uh, your life will change dramatically, um, if you get to know Him. Um, my wife and kids, I love you. I told you, man, I get emotional now when I talk about my family, but get to know God, it really makes a big difference. He's changed. I mean, I know my life is not perfect. I'm not rich, but I'm happy and content with what I have. Um, so get to know Him, ask for Him, um, run after Him, whatever you have to do to have that connection with Him. Um, find it, enjoy life. You know, don't worry about things that are out of your control. Just worry what you can handle and what's in front of you. Things that you cannot control, don't worry about them. Don't let them stress you. And at the end of the day, wake up praying. Go to sleep praying, because we never know when we're gonna get another day. But I can tell you that if you have that connection with God and you connect with Him, He will make your life a lot easier, in every aspect, not just in your life, your health, your business. your job, promotions, your marriage, your kids, with whatever you have. That's what I would put.
It's a pretty big. That's a pretty big post-it note, but
It's in
we'll take it.
it's written in very tiny letters.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for taking some time today, bro.
Thank you, Ed.
Appreciate the conversation. Thank you for being a good father and keep doing your thing. I'll be seeing you around at church more and more.
Yes, sir.
I know this is gonna be a fun journey, just to be brothers and just to have you in my life,
Yes,
bro.
sir.
So I appreciate you, man.
Thank you. I appreciate
And
you.
for those of you who are listening, you better listen to this again because there's a lot of things in there. A lot of things in here he went through pretty quick, but you better listen to it again so you don't miss it.
Yeah, a lot of
All
golden
right,
nuggets.
all right, brother. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Ed. Thank you again. Peace out.
Peace.